Welcome to the Default Profitable Podcast. You're listening to the next episode, and today we're going to focus on what it takes to be a professional salesman. We're going to talk about some successes and some failures, some stories from a college professor involved in selling and teaching people how to sell. I'm your host, Matt Nettleton, and today my guest is Chris Wilkey from Ball State. Chris, welcome to the show.
Nice. Thank you for having me on today. It is a pleasure, and I'm excited to hopefully share a few things that are at least helpful for some small business owners or people that are out there doing things. But if not, you'll hear a few good stories at least.
Excellent. Excellent. So you and I, we've kind of been in the same circles for a while. We both live in Fishers, or we've lived in Fishers. And we have like 500 connections in common on LinkedIn, but I really don't know anything about you. So why don't you take 2 or 3 minutes, introduce yourself to people and tell us a little bit about your story.
Yeah, not a problem. So my name's Chris Wilkey. I run the Center for Professional Selling at Ball State, also a professor doing dual roles, teaching marketing and sales. My career path started as a student at Ball State, shifted down to selling software in downtown Indianapolis for a startup, then went to doing a small digital marketing agency business. At the same time, I was a DJ, wedding DJ. So spent a lot of time at events and working with brides and grooms and families getting ready to get married. And then actually sold that business to an ad agency in Fishers. Worked up there for about a year and a half in the manufacturing, advertising, and digital marketing space. So anything like big machine tools, we were doing the marketing internationally for those. And then moved to the Ball State Foundation after that. In the foundation, I handled a lot of digital marketing. I shifted to housing after a few years and handled all of their external communications from that auxiliary within there. And then when COVID hit, I had a child. I was in housing, and it made pretty good sense to get out of there. And I loved my boss, loved my job, but I've switched over to the teaching side. I've taught some econ, some personal finance, and kind of landed in the sales and marketing space. About 3 years ago, took over the sales center. I was a student that went through it, and now I'm kind of running it. And my job is to connect students with entry-level sales jobs in mostly Indiana, could be across the nation, but we focus on getting them prepared professionally for those careers.
Well, that was a lot.
Sure. As short as I can make it, but yeah, we've been
Yeah.
a little over the place over the last 15 years.
All right. So how does, or what's the background of the Ball State Center for Professional Selling? Because that wasn't something that existed when I was there. When I was in college, I didn't go to Ball State, but I mean, sales was
So
not something that people taught.
yeah, you got me on my topic that I like to talk about, so you're good there. Sales education started about 30 years ago, roughly in higher ed. It was actually seen as just a tack on in a marketing class. So as one of your 4 Ps, you kind of threw it in there and you talked a little bit about it in class. About 4 colleges started pulling that out about 30 years ago and starting classes in it. So most of them started with an introduction to professional selling course. Ball State was the fourth university to have a course like that, and the fourth one to start a sales center. You had Baylor, Toledo, and I believe Dayton was the other one, but they were, and Northern Illinois was in there as well. But they were schools that saw that there was a lot of students leaving and getting out of college going straight into sales, and all we were doing was tacking it on in a marketing class and hoping they kind of figured it out as they went there. And a lot of the initial education was related to trying to make it not so that everybody thought they were used car salesmen. That was basically it. Like there's actually skills that are needed to do business to business selling or even business or B2C selling in a way that isn't just pushing your agenda and hoping they buy because you like your product so much you need to hit a commission. So they started doing a lot of that. And over those times or over those years, these centers have been built and they have been built by industry partnerships and alumni donors. And what they are, there's like co-curricular centers. So Ball State has a major in professional selling and a minor. Students can get trained with about 5 to 8 classes that teach them how to basically hit an entry-level sales job and be about a year or two above anybody when they hit it. So they get that training. But then we also do co-curricular. So a lot of my job is working with industry partners who are looking for these students, and we provide networking events, professional development. We do some consulting for the businesses that are trying to get their entry level staff or building internship programs. But that's what we do. It's trying to help the profession along and also kind of skill the students to be able to go out there and hit the ground running.
All right. So you owned a small business, and and how does that how does your experience owning a small business inform your running of the sales center?
Well, I think the best way to look at that would be I learned that sales, you're doing it all the time. And when you do it well, you don't even realize you're doing it. A lot of what I did for that digital marketing agency, we had a plan. We were going to do social media content writing for small business. That was the plan. I went into probably my first 50 meetings listening and trying to pick up on what social needs they had and what they were doing. What we found out very quickly, no one needed social content. They just needed to figure out how to create a website or how to do their Google listing or how to survive and get some clients and have like an email service to send it out. So some of the skills I learned from the classes I took was I actually was listening, and instead of going in there and starting pushing what I thought I needed, we thought we had the perfect business plan. It's like, oh, this will be easy. We know how to write this. It'd be they didn't need any of that crap. So we started going along there, and as I had learned that plus the DJing business, you learned that you are there to provide a service and basically take all of the problems away for the bride and the groom. You show up at the wedding, your job is to play music, make sure everything goes on time. And I always told the bride and groom, I will bring you a drink. I will come corral you when it is time, and I will make sure you get from place A to B and you get to say hi to everybody. And it's your time to party, my time to make sure you have fun. And you take that plus the listening side, you realize pretty quickly that if you just ask the right questions and you're actually listening for opportunities instead of trying to force something, all of a sudden things start popping up and you can go, oh, well, this is an opportunity here. Have you met this person? Maybe we can help you in this area. And that's really kind of the crux of what was taught in those classes. I got to see acted out when I was doing the small business side. And now I try to teach the students because it's the same if you go into a B2C or B2B market. You have people that have a problem. They want the problem fixed. If you have the right solution, they're going to buy it. You just got to figure out what that problem is and have them identify that so you can help them.
Yeah, it is interesting. Most people externally think sales is a convincing business, and in reality, it's a discovery business.
And I always tell my students, if you are actually doing sales correctly, you don't have to sell a thing. They will
Right.
literally say, "Yes, that's exactly what I need. Finally, I have a solution." They may need a few comparisons on benefits between what's different between you and a competitor if they've already identified the problem. But a lot of times, if I go in, I still do some consulting, and you'll listen to them because I just need this. I'm going, so if I can give you that, is that what you're looking for? Let's make a trade. Let's do something fun here, and that works out so much better than trying to say, "Here's what I can sell you, and here's why you need it."
Yes, the "If I could show you the way, would you?"
Yeah.
Yeah, totally offensive. Um, so when you started your digital marketing and even your DJ business, you know, one of the things that people talk about is they need to have a business plan already built. It sounds like you had a business plan built, but it wasn't accurate. Is
Oh, yeah.
that
The DJing was a little different. My dad bought me equipment and said, "You're the class president. Hire yourself for the dance that you're gonna do, and you'll pay for your equipment." That was a reasonable plan. I took a class when I was in high school that was entrepreneurship, and I built this whole plan over like this dinner theater thing. It was stupid. But the digital marketing business, you're right. I started it thinking we talked like we can do this really well. And instead of going and asking anybody, doing like informational interviews, figuring out what the market needed, I just assumed I was the one who knew what was going on and I could tell you. And quickly realized that after the first 6 months, that wasn't it at all. We only actually, in the entirety of what we did, sold 2 contracts to do social content. Everything else was website or some other digital aspect, specifically in email, ads, SEO, or websites.
and so there are actually this is, I think, episode like 145, and probably 140 of the episodes we've talked about the three things you need to have to start the business. The first one was a strategic plan. The second one was like 6 months of savings. And the third one was a clear understanding of what your audience wants. It sounds like you had a plan, but the plan wasn't accurate.
Mhm.
You thought what they needed, but what they needed wasn't accurate. And, um, well, you were pretty young then, so I doubt you had 6 months of savings sitting around.
I mean, within that, I had kind of. I mean, didn't have a lot of stuff. I was teaching on the side, could survive through that. It wasn't a big deal. But yeah, you're right. We kind of, best way to say it, kind of half-assed the plan portion on the figuring out what the actual industry needed, and then kind of was smart enough, I guess, to go through and to adapt and fix it. So as we did it, I remember watching a bunch of training videos on how to build websites, and I taught myself from scratch to do it because I saw what they needed. Did some SEO work and went, okay, I can finally do this now. Probably why I'm teaching and doing what I did today was because of it, but it was ill-informed and then kind of readjusted because of the sales side, figuring out what was actually needed.
Yeah, and and so that's it's interesting because you brought up planning for having a sales plan, and I think one of the things that people lose sight of is the plan itself is not all that valuable. The exercise of planning is invaluable, right? So understanding how to look at the market and discover what they want and getting really good at listening and hearing and asking questions seems to be the number one skill that people need. But it sounds like you kind of consciously stumbled onto that because you didn't know what you were looking for, but you knew when you found it.
Yeah, and I think the thing that I train students on now, there's two ways to look at how you question stuff. So if I go into a meeting, I can go with a path that I'm trying to get them to something, like I want to sell this product, and I lead questions along to ask to that, so that it kind of, yeah, I'm fishing. You're asking a question here. Do you have this kind of problem or this kind of issue? Why is that a problem? What happens if you don't fix it? But if you go the other way and when you're doing the planning process and ask, why the heck would someone buy my service or product to begin with? And then build those use cases backwards, they can help you craft some of those questionings when you go in for a sales call to figure out why there could be needs for your product. And they can both inform each other on that process.
Yeah, and that so I did a talk at our international summit a couple years ago on, you know, the worst sales advice ever is ask good questions, right? Because
Huh.
nobody says, "Oh, here's what a good question is." I mean, the best sales advice is be professionally curious, and here's what you're trying to build. So you've just laid out, hey, you're doing one of these two things. And by the way, one is much more scalable than the other. Like leading questions aren't really scalable very much.
No, and if you're good at it, you don't have to ask those leading questions. The students ask me all the time, "What question do I ask?" Well, just ask questions. Just figure it out. Start listening. And we do an exercise in class where I will just lay out a bunch of like problems I have, and they think I'm nuts because I spend like 15 minutes in front of class just rambling on about the day. And I'll ask them, "So, what? How can you guys help me?" And they're looking at me like, "Well, what do you mean how I can help you?" I said, "I just laid out, I got this problem, I got this problem, I got this problem. If you were listening, there's your keys." And we go through the role play process in class, and it kills me because I can see the students like missing the hooks.
Yeah.
Like there's things that are being dropped. If you were paying attention, there it is, but you
Right.
don't know what you're looking for. The question really doesn't matter. It's the answer and how you respond to that next question and how you kind of dive deep.
Yeah. Yeah. It is learning how to be disciplined in asking questions is super important. I mean, that's pretty much what I spend my time on. So it's good to hear that that's something that you're helping people understand too. That's a valuable skill. What other what stories do you have for business owners? If somebody's an aspiring business owner, right? They're early 20s, they're thinking, "Hey, I don't want to work for the man. I want to go do my own thing. I want to start my digital agency or my DJ business. I want to do that." What things would you advise them as somebody who's seen a lot?
Huh, that's a good question. Um, whew. So I've done a lot of random things over time. You didn't even get all the stories on the businesses stuff. I built one website where we did a Facebook group and taught people how to sell on Amazon. and ended up selling that business off to a guy and watching him crash and burn the business when he was done. And then they brought me back on to teach and write for him again. What I've learned and I think would be valuable is find something that you like, but not something that you like that can't make money. So if you're going to go direction, find something that actually is a value to someone. I could be the best origami folder in the entire world, but unless someone's going to pay for that, don't do it. So number one, find something that's actually valuable. But as you go through that, the thing I always tell my students is stories matter and customer service matters once you get your client. You want that experience of whoever you're going there to go and talk to everybody out there about how awesome you are. We have a close family friend who's starting a business in like automotive and selling like custom high end parts for specific kind of cars. And he was going through and he had a client off Facebook reach out to him. He did a custom job for him. The guy was so excited. He took video, showed the whole like shop, got so excited. And the guy at the business was like, "I'm so mad about this." He goes, "I didn't get everything cleaned up. Like it's not how what my business looks like." And you wanted to go, "Dude, that is your business though. That is more valuable marketing than there could ever be because you have somebody that you did not pay, that they
Right.
paid you, and they're gonna talk about how awesome all your stuff is down the line. So if you're gonna do anything, don't it's the old Swanson quote, "Don't half-ass a lot of things, whole-ass one thing,"
Right.
as you go through it, and figure out what that is and then really own it. So if you're going digital, be the best at that and go above and beyond for those first few clients in particular to build those brand loyal people that are going to be your advocates down the line. And then once you do that, keep that same level of system there and have processes in the back end. Everybody wants to go in and say, "Oh, I can do this." But if you're going to scale your business down the line, how can you train someone else to do what you're doing so that you can do the more important things that make you more money down the road?
Yes.
Because if I was doing the DJ business all over again, I would have set up a massive like booking site and hired DJs with training and materials and having them rent it out and have been able to expand it because I could only be one place at one time. And I was limiting myself in the income. Same with the digital. As we did that, you could only do so much yourself. How do you make yourself obsolete to be able to go move to bigger and better things that make more money for your business in the long run?
So let me ask a question. Having said that, um, one of the things that I see potential business owners and young business owners is they let the perfect get in the way of the present. Like they, rather than starting the digital marketing site and at least getting cash flow, they wait until they can build something perfect, but they'll never do it because they don't know enough because they're still in the business planning stage. And so I think there's a start and expand version of what you just said. Like,
Yeah, and I explain it in my classes like this. I'm a huge Mythbusters fan. That's
yes,
that's my show that I like to watch. I've watched all this stuff with it. They always did kind of, when they wanted to blow something up, they always did proof of concept. That was the
yes,
initial thing. They tried and they saw that it worked. It wasn't perfect. Usually some little model they were playing with, they tested it. Then they went small scale. Then they ramped it up a little bit. Then they went to the large scale and they took the cement truck and put a bunch of TNT in it and blew it up. I think a lot of people get so worried about being perfect on the proof of concept. You got to make sure it works. If you can't make money off of something, what the heck are you doing for it? Try it. Then, as you get to small scale, start testing and making sure you're going to mess up. I think if you talk to any person who teaches entrepreneurship or has been in a small business, they're going to mess up a bunch of times. I think I went to the Global Economic Congress down in Indianapolis a few weeks ago, and one of the things the major angel investor that was there saying, he goes, "I won't talk to somebody unless they've killed like 2 or 3 businesses, because then that's when they actually learned. And I know that they're going to be something that could be worthwhile because until you do it, you don't understand what you did." And when a lot of classes, when we do simulations, we throw them in with the idea of you're not going to be perfect. You're going into a swimming pool. I'm going to toss you in the deep end. You're not going to drown, but you're going to feel like you're sinking. And at that moment, when you've got to figure it out, that's when you learn. And then from there, you can start reiterating and polishing it, but you got to do something to get it started.
right. Yeah, that is just start, fail, and come back. And I think the other, it's one thing to say, yeah, they've burned through 3 businesses, but the number of people who fail and quit is also too high. Like Failure is just part of it, man. You just got to keep going. So, um, if you would go back to the night before, if 2025 Chris could go back to the night before 2013, 2014 Chris was starting the digital marketing agency, and you get to sit next to him and put your arm around him and say, "Hey, listen, everything turns out great. You'll be fine. By the way, tomorrow when you start the business, here's the one thing that you need to focus on first." What's the first thing to focus on?
Good question. I think if I look back at myself at that time, I thought I always wanted to be a business owner, but I never knew what that really meant and everything that was around it. And I think if I would have gone back to talk to myself, I would say, okay, if you're going to do this, we need to focus on process, we need to focus on scalability, and I need you to go and once you do something, go talk to the person on why the heck they sold you, they bought from you, and how it worked. I don't think, looking back now, that that business was going to be a long term business. I think that if you would have got 5 years out of it, it would have been impressive. Am very glad it ended up how it ended, instead of where it was. But I think if I was ever going to grow it, I was going to have a whole different viewpoint than what I was doing. We were going more to survive and to start something, and I should have gone more of an angle to build something in the long term.
Yeah, it is understanding the scope of your vision and the direction, because it's one thing to build for survival. I think it's Seth Godin has a book, Survival's Not Enough, right? And it's a book about, hey, listen, the vision that you have for your business shouldn't be I'm going to barely scrape by until I fall over dead. Like it should be, here's what I'm trying to accomplish. Here's where I'm going, right? If you get that directionally right, then you can plan for it.
Yeah,
So
exactly. And I think that's where, as a young person starting this, I thought I had a good idea, and I'm not sure today if I would wanna be in, the business ownership where I was running that large scale of something where it needed to be was never gonna be where I was at. I was never gonna be able to make a long-term business in the small business space consulting like we were doing. It was gonna have to scale up to a larger market, and my pricing would have had to go up significantly. And I undervalued the services to an extreme comparatively when I went to work for the digital or the ad agency, I went, "Holy crap, you're charging this for that?" And I realized very quickly that I had no idea what I was doing, and figuring that stuff out and how the approach is. And I needed to niche down and say, I really wanted to go this direction. And the industries that I thought were fun to work with were definitely not going to be money makers. I had to go to something boring if we were going to do that because no one likes to do boring. Everybody likes the shiny object, but the real money's in the stuff that no one knows what it is and no one really wants to do, but it works out really nicely.
yeah, yeah, that's right. As as a professor, you deal with a lot of young kids. If a person who's not in college was looking to learn about sales or selling or planning, what resources what's the top 2 resources you'd recommend? And then we can put a whole bunch of other stuff in the show notes if you have other stuff that you'd recommend.
Well, that's a good question. So we do my world is very just college students. We'll do a little bit for early stuff. When I recommend students or anybody else go out, I said go find a nice book. Whatever book you want to find that's a sales book, everyone's going to be about the same. They're going to have a different terminology, different process, different spin, but they're going to be something similar. Read like three of them, figure out the general themes throughout it, and that's going to be your crux of good sales. Everybody teaches you kind of the same things except in a different format. So start there. If you're going to do small business stuff, go find someone in the industry and just take them to lunch. Don't go with a method of you're trying to steal their business, you're trying to take their ideas. Literally, just go and listen. And then find whatever organization they're a part of and become part of that, and you'll start learning a lot more within it. If I look back to actually what started everything for me, it was working with the American Marketing Association as an intern. I took a job within that space and met a whole bunch of cool people and learned a whole bunch of stuff that gave me the knowledge to be able to at least go speak the talk with it and then go to be within that. If you find an old retired person, go talk with them. What did you learn? Those are the best ones. I always tell people go sit at a bar with somebody that retired from that industry and go figure out everything that went really well, went really bad. Buy them a drink or two and tell them thank you for your time and actually listen. A lot of the stuff that I've learned over the years is not because I'm smart. It's because I listened to somebody who had done it and I went, huh, I shouldn't go try to redo that myself. I should probably listen to that person. If you listen, my father-in-law did sales and he taught me a whole bunch about sales. And I sit there and I'll go, you're doing this wrong. He goes, yeah, I know. I like to make my own mistakes. Shut up. And he's retired. And now we talk about it. He's like, yeah, I shouldn't have done this, or I did this really well. I'm like, yeah, that's why I teach my students like this because I watch you do it. I'm not going to reinvent the wheel. I haven't had the 30 years. Let me just figure out what you did well and how that worked and go from there. I hope it was beneficial to the people who are out there listening. And always, if you need anything, I'm at Ball State. You can find me on their website and on LinkedIn. So be happy to assist and do whatever's needed.
Subscribe, you can leave a review, or you could share an episode. Chris, thanks again for being a guest.
Not a problem.
And thanks to our listeners for joining us. We'll be back next week with another episode of Default Profitable. Until then, stay focused, keep working, stay profitable.